what you will say to that woman right now that wants to start this business but actually don't know where to start? What you will say to her?
I would say stop being afraid. I know it's easier said than done, but stop being afraid, stop doubting yourself. I'm the one to speak here. I'm my best friend and my worst enemy all at the same time. I think for us women, generally, we doubt more, we question more, we wonder more before we actually take that step, right? Men just, no offense, but they just go, they just do, generally speaking, and then think about what they've done.
So please, grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable, and enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast.
Hello and welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. This podcast has never been just about branding. So it was created, in fact, to hold the space for real conversations, the kind that really empower through all the honesty, the clarity, and all the stories that teach us how move forward with more intention. Each of the guests that I bring to the podcast, they are sharing something meaningful. They are sharing a life experience, a skill, or a truth that normally we don't hear enough of. So today's episode is something about that. My guest today is Tanyth Blackler, and she's the founder of Do Your Thing. Amazing name, actually. And she is the go-to person when you are ready to stop guessing and actually set up your business in Luxembourg. So she's built this service that really cuts through all the overwhelm, and she's helping individuals and small businesses go from the idea to the real structure with less stress and more support. So this episode is it's going to be kind of a masterclass and a part of this reality check. And you will hear what really happens behind the scenes of business setup, what most people get wrong, and how to avoid the costly mistakes that no one's telling us that it's going to happen. So if you have been sitting on a business idea and feeling probably lost in the mess of admin, that I have been there, as well language barriers or uncertainty, I'm sure this conversation might be the thing that get you unstuck. So Tanyth, welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. And the first question, would you like to start by sharing in your own words who you are and what you stand for?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your podcast, Maria. As you've heard before, I'm excited and nervous and everything in between, but I think that's kind of usual. I have that every day, the excitement and nervousness, which actually leads to my business. More the excitement, I would like to say, than the nervous and stress. That's what we're trying to avoid, or at least decrease the stress levels. So a little bit, or let's put it this way, I'll try and put 20 years into a little minute or two. I started off very young, working. I decided to be more the practical, hands-on kind of girl than theory at school. I went through different professions, different roles, from IT consulting companies to law firms to business centers. So I've kind of seen it all to a certain extent. And why I ended up launching my business in 2019 was actually for one major reason, biggest reason, let's say, the biggest motivation I had was simply in every single business I worked in, the customer service was either non-existent or not really good. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to be the one who can have these conversations between managers, clients, employees, work on confrontation with them and help them move forward all the way through to, of course, people starting out being lost, overwhelmed with the paperwork and so on and so forth. That's where I am today, 6 years later. And as I said, happy to share today a little bit of my knowledge and experience I've managed to pick up over all these years.
Yeah, that is great because actually one of my question, it was oriented in know how you have been start your business, but the why. And you just give us the why you have been starting that business. And now I wanted to connect that a little bit with the story behind your work, a little bit more details and what made you really want to help others building their own businesses in this way, because I think we always have an experience and something happened to us that trigger something that we want to do. And I think it's very important to share the story behind. So can you share with us a little bit more about
Sure,
that
sure,
story?
absolutely. Absolutely. So of course, as I just said, the why I realized the why at quite of a young age, I would say. And I just had to wait for the right opportunity, right moment to kick off. Fortunately for myself, I went through my own experience, of course, setting up businesses in companies I worked before. I learned what that actually means, all the administrative tasks and challenges and delays and, the pressure, the frustration, so on and so forth. To the point where I then said, okay, well then who's helping all these other people who are starting a business? I mean, there are various reasons you can get stuck. It could be, language barriers. It could be just the technicalities of the forms. It just could be you have a busy life. You have, a family to manage and things to do. There's only so many hours in the day to get everything done. And so yeah, let's say that the story behind that is I started seeing people, or hearing people having them contact me to say, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. I can, of course, get support for free, but that support, so for example, like the House of Entrepreneurship, which just for the note, are wonderful in what they do in providing the free advice and tools for the people. But I'm not sure how I should put it. It's not adapted to you. It's very much more of like ticking the box. If you tick all the boxes, great. And if not, well, you're not going to pass this part of the process. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
need a bit more hands-on, and everybody is different. Every person is different. Every business is different. You have different routines, different speeds of getting things done, different skills and different challenges. So I said, okay, this is where maybe I can fit in. I speak multiple languages. I've been through the tough stuff of knowing the theory versus the practical of setting up a business. I think that makes a big difference as well, of actually knowing what they want from you when they ask you certain questions, which, as I said, 6 years in, I've helped a number of businesses all the way through from ideation phase to the setup and development phases. So dealing with all the forms and everything. And I would very much like to say and hope that they went through this whole process less stressed and less overwhelmed.
Yeah, relax. Kind of a relax. And part of this big myth as us as an entrepreneurs and getting and jumping into the entrepreneurship, there is this idea that what it really means launch your business. But behind the scenes, it's very often that it's super messy, confusing. Actually, it's a very lonely path to follow, especially here in Luxembourg. So, what do you think is the most common misconceptions that we are having as an entrepreneurs when we decide to start our business here in Luxembourg?
I think it's safe to say, Maria, you know me well enough by now that I'm brutally honest. And I mean in the best of intentions for also people who are watching, listening, and who are considering opening up a business. I would say that the biggest myth is that they think it's the administrative tasks and everything that's super difficult. But it's actually, as you said, it can be an emotional and a lonely journey, as well as the fact if you've not done your homework in the beginning, if you've not done the research, if you've not checked the numbers, that's where it's going to be tough. I mean, just a couple of examples. When you want to open up a shop, there's rent to consider, there's employee costs, staff costs to consider. That's where I have seen more businesses have a much harder time, or people having a much harder time and struggling at the survival part, let's say. So they're more surviving than thriving is how I put it. That's where I think a lot of people go through that. They go through the painful setup part and go, whew, okay, I managed it. Wow. And then they go, okay, but now comes the real deal, the real tough day-to-day, what we call the day-to-day grind, right? Of making sure that every day you get through it, and hopefully in a positive way, and not trying to survive one day to another.
Yeah, that become a little bit as the challenges that we are not expected that happen. And one of those is the timeline. And we have been talking about that. So nobody is really prepared for that. So they say, I'm going to set up it's just a couple of things and this is going to be done. But as well, this is not the reality. So what you can share with us, what is the timeline that does really happen when you wanted to set up a business, and for people to be prepared about that, and how you coming to the scene and manages this timeline with them?
I would definitely say to be on the safe side, as we always say, bearing various elements in mind of someone at the office on holiday who's not seen your email, or someone has to stamp off a form or something like this. I would safely say anything between 4 and 12 weeks. 4 and 12 weeks for setup for an SA, SAL, SAL-S or whatever. There's also, I'm involved, for example, with the social business incubator, which is actually where social impact companies are created, let's say, where you can get an accreditation. So learn that process, for example, can also already, just that one formality can take up to 1 or 2 months. So it's very much on, it depends how well you are prepared. Talking about bank account opening, I mean, I won't even get started on that today. I think you can start a complete separate podcast, let alone on bank account opening challenges here in Luxembourg.
Yeah, exactly.
So all these different processes in between, safely said, with preparation done properly. So, knowing where to go, what to do in that straight order, all the way through to having your company finished, set up and ready to roll. I would say, 4 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, well, that number, and I just wanted to come back to ask you about that number, because you said 4 weeks, it will be like a reasonable, right? But I have been seeing people really stuck on that, really trying to make the things happen faster. And I think this is part as well of the services that you are offering, where you already know how that works, what are the steps, how long it will take. So in the real time, a person that wanted to set up their business, how long that could really take for them?
That's it. I've also seen my fair share of the good and the bad and everything in between. So I can give you two extreme examples if you like. The best example I can give was the quickest turnaround I had for a company setup was 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
I think that's
wow.
probably my proudest moment I had. Record
Yes.
time, 2.5 weeks, simply because we really went, okay, literally the step by step, no exceptions, no documents missing, no, I forgot to tick a certain
Nothing.
box, everything perfectly in order. Worst case scenario we had, and when I say we, thank God it wasn't down to us. It was actually almost a year, simply because the activity of the company was simply just not understood by the Ministry of Economy, who was supposed to issue the business permit. So it's the whole misunderstanding, communication issues by trying to understand what the business was about and their assumptions, which caused unbelievable delays to the point that I actually had to physically go to the Ministry of Economy, have a meeting with them to clarify it in half an hour meeting.
Yeah.
So as I said, again, the preparation work is super important, being clear on what do you want to do and where do you want to go with this, and what kind of formalities and things do I need to go through the process makes it a lot easier. To avoid, of course, you don't want everybody spending a year on setting up your business. So that's what we're about, of course, and to make sure it's done. I wouldn't just say just done quickly. That is the goal of having it done quicker than anything else, sure, but it's done properly.
Yeah.
Because that can
But
also backfire.
actually, yeah, what you mentioned, preparation is the key. And in this process of preparation, and I think now is coming this masterclass that we promise, people can learn from your advice. And I'm curious about what are these 5 things that someone that really need to do this, to start their business and register, they need to keep in mind. What are these five things that you can advise?
So really the steps to follow is number one, and I think first and foremost is the knowing what you want to do, in the sense of having a clear business plan of saying, these are the services, products, or whatever I want to offer. Where's, which market, who are you, who are your customers, already having a bit of this research and thinking about it of, okay, well, what is it, for who, and how am I going to do this? And of course, by all means, work on the financials as well to say, okay, can I afford this? Can I live off my savings or whatever? To make sure that you have a semi-decent plan in place. And then when we come to the steps is really when we're talking about the actual setup part, of course, depending on the structure one goes for, is I used to say one thing at a time. I will put a tiny little exception to this, as we referred back to before, the opening a bank account is that's probably this is the 1A, the 1B, the 1C, all the way through to the end, to make sure that you already have those initial conversations with the bank when you say, I'm setting up a business, to know which ones are able or willing to set up the bank account for you. At that
Yeah.
same time, then starting with the statutes of the company. So technically speaking, it's the prep work done before. So your business plan. You then have the RCS registration, the business permit application. Make sure you declare your beneficial owners, and then comes the VAT and Social Security registration. Those are really, let's say, the 5 main
The 5.
elements to get set up. Yeah, I would say.
And all the decoration that are around that. I mean, starting by the bank accounts, and in these many years that you have been spending in Luxembourg and the Luxembourg markets and all the things, why is it so complicated to open a bank account in Luxembourg?
Well, as I said, I won't spend too much time on that. Otherwise, I think it'll be, as I said, a separate podcast for itself.
I think a lot of people are curious about that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we as well, we have unfortunately seen that change quite a bit. So let's say the abbreviated version is a combination from having enough staff members in the banks to do the KYC AML checks. So actually having the people to be in the background doing the controls that they need to make sure that companies are doing the things properly, no money laundering, and so on and so forth is one element. The main actually, so the companies, let's say the legal structures that are having the hardest time at the moment is the SAL-S's, so the simplified companies, simply because the bank says in their terms, right, it's too much of a liability for us. Because, of course, in their understanding, a SAL-S, the €1 company, in other words, they don't bring the bank anything. They're not going to be asking or getting big loans where they pay interest, the big interest rates on it. They're not going to bring in huge customers. At least this is what the banks believe. So they're making it, I'm not saying impossible, but they're making that process a lot harder to go through. And
Okay.
what shocks me the most, actually, with all the various banks, I mean, you've seen and heard the latest news, various banks closing down private bank accounts, all the way through to refusing company bank accounts. I mean, things are changing. Things are changing, and basically, at the end of the day, they need to make sure that they keep up to that certain extent of being able to offer solutions to, the businesses that make up the economy we live in.
Yeah. And I will attach that, like, you need at the end that kind of a preparation in your, let's say, mental health, in the sense that if you are going to start your business, to set up your business, actually, I will ask you what you recommend in terms of have this confidently set up process in order to be as prepared to do this and get it good results. Because when you start something and everything feels like this is overwhelming, so probably people will say, I mean, set up a company, no, this is not something that I really wanted to deal with. And probably most of the people are saying, I am not going to start a company. And what we want is actually pushing, especially women, to decide, I want to start my company. So what will be your advice related with that?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that once you've gone through the setup process, you'll be way more resilient than when you started off, let alone understanding patience, staying calm, being patient, and kind of fighting through to get to the end. It can be a bit of a tough journey sometimes, but I wouldn't want people to be pushed away from that, or to be scared off by that yes, it can be a bit faffy sometimes, what we say, but it's all possible with the right help. So whether it be us, for instance, there are plenty of advisors. You can go to the House of Entrepreneurship. I mean, there are plenty of ways. And as I said, I always keep coming back to the preparation work. What I mean also by the preparation work is just having a page or two of saying, okay, this is the idea I have. This is what I want to do. Would this make sense? All the questions, I call them midnight questions, all the things that pop in your head in the middle of the night going, oh, that could be cool. That could be an idea, and so on and so forth. And actually then have conversations with people, and I'd like to say it respectfully, with advisors who know what they're talking about when we're talking about setting up a business here, because they can be the ones who can actually either guide you through these processes or actually come in with hands-on and help you get it done. And that's the big difference, which, as I said before, saves a lot of stress, saves a lot of time, and gives you that extra piece of clarity along the way as well, so that you come out or go through this process without already feeling, that you've gone to war or something like this with the government and administrative documents.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, with all the experience that you have been helping business and people create and set up their business in Luxembourg, what is this big mistake that you see over time people are doing and losing money and making this mistake again and again? What is the most repeatable mistake that you see people are doing just to avoid them to do that and save some money?
Yeah, as I said before, when you do the setup the right way, it actually avoids a lot of loss of time and money. And I mean, very literally. As I said, if you follow the clear steps and that structure to get your company set up, and not sort of have to backtrack and, oh, oops, I forgot this, and so on and so forth, or, oh no, I had to go to the notary for my sales setup, and then I forgot an element, so I need to pay him again. That's all these little steps and processes where, if you, again, have a clearer structure on what are you doing and where you're going with all this, you can avoid these kind of things. Additionally to that, I would say that quite often, I mean, I've been through that experience myself. When you start up, or when you're just on the radar from the Chambre de Commerce and the Ministry of Economy, everybody around you gets super excited and says, oh, you just launched your business. How wonderful. You need to become a member here, and you need to invest here, and you need to do this there. As I said, and as you mentioned before, it can be a lonely journey setting up, especially being a solopreneur. I get that. But it doesn't mean that you have to spend all your money that you maybe at that point in time are not making yet to be involved in a million different groups and clubs and communities. There are plenty out there actually that are either very cheap or for free that you can get support from, sort of that like moral support, I would like to say as well. Not necessarily the legal advice in that sense, but just the moral support. I mean, for example, your community you've built up as well is a perfect example to say this is a safe space where we can come together, where we can share our experiences, our frustrations, and help each other move forward. Because in my belief as well, that's the whole point of it at the end of the day, of making sure everybody can move forward in the, how I say, in the healthiest and sanest way
Safe.
possible.
In the safe environment.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Trying to, yeah, not get it into the mistake right away, but at least feeling that there is support, there is a safe place, and they can create that. And is we all have the tendency to go and say, well, this is something that we find on Google. This is 2 minutes. They say everything, because now you go and you find everything on internet. You know how to set up a business in Luxembourg. But what is this unique thing that only you know, that because you have been living here? And I know this is a challenging question, but what will you say? Well, this is, I know that nobody else know, and I will just share this here in the podcast because I think this is a golden nugget. If you can share this with us.
Oh, yes, that's a very, very good one, actually. And I'm going to be cheeky and actually say that even with internet, even with ChatGPT, trust me when I say you will still not know actually everything about setting up your business, because there's, as I said, or at least it shouldn't be one answer fits everybody. As I said before, it's a different person, different situation, different business. So it should be treated as such. It's not this is the format for everybody and everything. But really, that's a tough one. But really say, if nothing else, I would go back to the culture nugget. I'll put it that way now. The culture nugget that you need to have or know would be, it's actually so easy to have conversations with the administrations and governments, by all means, in English and French and whatever other language. But actually, by starting off that phone call or conversation with, Moyen, can you help me?
Yes.
Actually, and I'm not sure if I should be happy or scared about this actually, but that actually brings you much further and faster in all these processes than if you just do like a cold call to them in English or French and just be completely lost in your conversation. I've seen that again and again and again. I've had a handful of clients who said, you're joking, right? I said, no, just try me. Pick up the phone, call them and say, do you mind speaking English because I'm not so good on Luxembourgish? And they said they had the best conversations ever. They had the best clarity after those conversations on the phone because they had clearer and friendlier guidance on, okay, this is what you need to go and get done.
They are willing to help always. I have been always loving the procedures in Luxembourg because of that. And it's funny that we always arrive and say, Moyen, that is done. Can we speak in English, please? Yeah, that is amazing. And part of the things that I would like you to deliver here in order for us to empowering other women, because I will love to see more women creating companies in Luxembourg. And actually, my question is a little bit more what you will say to that woman right now that wants to start this business, but actually don't know where to start. What you will say to her?
I would say stop being afraid. I know it's easier said than done, but stop being afraid, stop doubting yourself. I mean, I'm the one to speak here. I mean, I'm my best friend and my worst enemy all at the same time. I think for us women, generally, we doubt more, we question more, we wonder more before we actually take that step, right? Men just, no offense, but they just go, they just do, generally speaking, and then think about what they've done. Whereas we're more, okay, how do I do this? But oh, what if? And I need to make sure the kids are okay. And da, 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 da. There's so many elements that we have to think about. I mean, that's a good thing. But we get so stuck in the theoretical of setting up a business that we actually don't move to the practical. So, as I said, don't be afraid. If you don't want to do this on your own or feel that it can be a lonely journey, reach out. Reach out to me, reach out, to Maria, to plenty of organizations that are out
Yeah.
there. There's plenty of programs actually out there. We're launching our own actually in 2026, more at the aim for female entrepreneurs. So always happy to have them on board and reach out. There are plenty of other programs and support opportunities out there for you to have that safe space, to have people you can exchange with and help you move forward and actually kind of, I wouldn't say run the business for you, otherwise there's no point in that, but just be that the support you need, whether that be the friend that you can vent to and have a glass of wine with after a long painful day, whether that be the advice and advisor that you need to go through some challenges you're going through with the company, whatever. It's all there, you just have to look for it.
This is a very wise advice and very encouraging. And I think all the women that are listening to us right now, women or men or all genders, are understanding that we need to take action. And another thing that I wanted to attach actually with the name of your brand that you explained to me one day when I said, explain to me what means the name of your brand. And is do your thing. And do
We'll
your
do the
thing
rest.
say, exactly, do your thing, we'll do the rest. It's amazing. And I think that now that I bring this to this podcast as well, that is branding and empowerment, it's very good that the people know that you can do what they are not able to do or don't wanted to really put the hands on, and they are going to do their thing, because sometimes you just need to ask for help. So to ask for help is part of what I want you now to share with us, whether people can contact in you, whether people can get it a conversation with you, if you wanted to share that with us.
Absolutely. I mean, by all means, I'm always happy to help. I'm involved in various support programs, as we say as well. It's another thing, just a tiny little FYI or a little extra mini nugget for people starting out. Always make sure that you have a business that pays the bills, and happily, of course, do what we call some charity work. I've been doing quite a bit of charity work myself in the last few years, which I'm always happy to do. But of course, keeping that balance, right? So in that context, there are programs I'm involved in. There's mentoring clubs I'm involved in as well, where you can just, book a call, a session with me just to go through, like a brainstorming session. You can reach out directly via our website, for example, so we can see a little bit what we actually do, because we like to keep ourselves busy. And just, we can always have a conversation and see, what can be done, whether that be going through a more guided program or actually just having someone to do the hands-on support.
Yeah.
That's always something we're happy to look into with you. And I always like to say, we do not work for you or someone hires us to just get a job done. This is really a collaboration. We really work together,
Co-creation.
exactly, to move you forward in the way that you like to move forward.
Well, Amazing, Tanyth. I have to say thank you. Thank you for sharing this very
Thank you.
valuable information. And just have to ask to you, do you want to add something else? Do you wanted to say something else? Now you have the opportunity to share whatever you wanted to share just to wrap up this episode.
Maybe one last thing again, back to whoever's listening, watching. As I said, don't be afraid of taking that first step. I know firsthand that it's one of the scariest things to do. But at the end of the day, would you want to be, I always say to my partner as well, I don't want to be sat there when I'm 80, 90, or 95 years old saying, what if? Yeah? Don't have to ask that question of the what if. I rather go through the experience and learn, right? So either you succeed or you learn. Either way, you're going to grow.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Tanyth. Thank you for
Thank you
being here
very
in
much.
the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Thank you.
I'm grateful by having you as a listener on this episode. I am in the mission of empowering thousands of women around the globe, and I need your support for that. Help me to spread the voice by sharing this episode and subscribe to our social media channels. And remember, if you want to listen to exceptional stories and have someone that inspires you, please get in touch with me because I will love to have them as a guest to learn from their experience and share their story with you next time. So until the next episode, ciao ciao.